All right, so uh, most, I say there's a lot of ninjas that aren't even here, right? Because you can't even see them. They're that good at being ninjas. So you guys are ninjas in training, basically. But it starts with a mindset. So I was thinking about this a whole lot here recently, but the mindset is at any given point in time, people can choose to either be a player or a victim. We just had spring break last week. I was telling my team this. We started spring break in Duck on Saturday. I think the majority of Sunday and Monday was when all the clients who had to see something right before I left town and hadn't done a single thing in real estate for months or sometimes even years all decide to write an offer or want to put an offer in, the same day while I'm at the beach. Uh, Basically wrote four offers, two of them like fully negotiated out to the ninth degree, got acceptable terms from the seller. One of them, then the listing agent got another offer. Um, our offer was better, but they chose the other offer, and they weren't supposed to tell me this, but they said it's because the other person had a newborn and just sold their house and felt it was a more urgent need. I said, you mean discrimination? Like, you mean familial status, like protected class? But that one was, I spent like kind of all day, and we had, talked about inspection and waiving and appraisal. Like, there was many conversations headed down. They accepted another offer. Another one was a guy who he has a house to sell, doesn't need to sell because he's super qualified. We got the winning offer and they said, hey, as long as you go 870 non-contingent, house is all yours. We'll give you a 60-day closing so you can get the other house sold, but we just want it to be non-contingent. And he said, no, it's just too stressful. And so I was like, oh, geez. So at the end of the spring break, I was 0 for 4 instead of what was pretty exciting Sunday and Monday of the start. But was just thinking that whole week, man, real estate sucks. I'm out. I quit. Like, what else could I be doing? Like, here I am wasting my vacation dealing with stuff, and then it's right there at your grasp. But the mindset there is victim. So you have to kind of get yourself out of that and be like, no, like there's going to be more people, there's going to be more deals, there's going to be other houses. So sure enough, one of those folks, by the time I got back on Saturday, we ratified on Sunday on an even better house for them. I've got two new listings today, got a listing coming tomorrow. But mindset is more, you got to be a player. Nobody likes a victim. Nobody wants to hang out with a victim. They want somebody who is exciting, who's positive, who's friendly. Like, who wouldn't want to work with Maura? Like, she puts out that vibe of player and exciting. Player in a good way, right? So starts with maybe the other one. I don't know. Starts with a mindset. Someone who's getting it done, right? So you've heard it said that people want to work with someone they know, like, and trust. Ninja selling adds in the know, like, trust, and flow. So flow being someone they enjoy or they vibe with. Light attracts like. Change your vibe, change your world. It kind of talks about in that. And so oftentimes, and there's chapters on this in the book, of you need to know for yourself what gets you in that right mood. So I feel like I've heard Dean's training before a listing appointment. There might be a certain song that you put on your drive over and you just start jamming out to. There might be certain things that you read, certain pictures that you have up on a vision board. Whatever your trick is, you have to be thinking through, okay, how can I change kind of my vibe, my energy? Who do I need to be around? A victim, it's easy just to walk around the office and find out who all the rest in the office are who can commiserate over losing an 870 and then a 550 listing, like all within the span of like 30 seconds. But you need to find what works for you to kind of change that. The book talks a lot about this flow, and that's kind of just being kind of in relationship with your clients. And so later on, I'll kind of talk about there's some auto flow activities That could be, emails and maybe social media stuff and just stuff that kind of just goes, and then there's live flow. So it's going to be on the phone or in person. But it's a matter of this continual communication, this continual relationship is flow. Another little preface to all this is that I mentioned this yesterday, kind of stop selling and start solving. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold. The easiest example for me I think about is, I haven't done this in a while, but anytime you go into a furniture store, what do they ask? Yeah, what do you say? just like every single time I'm buying a couch that day, I tell them I'm just looking. So I hate being sold. I like to buy things. So here's one. Has anyone ever chased a cat? Who chases it? I had one get loose on a listing, and I had to drive over and like find a cat, and you have to chase it. How does chasing a cat work out for you? No. So how do you trap a cat?
You get a better chance of focusing it to come to you and trap it in a corner.
Yeah. And so this is kind of a little bit the know, like, and trust, right? For a cat, you can have a good aura and like pleasing, but sometimes you also then still need to dangle something to attract them over. And so in real estate, that's the same thing for us. They have to know, like, and trust you, but then there also needs to be some sort of value. So sometimes you have to kind of dangle that little bit of value. And then the kind of rhetorical question and then after that is, would you rather chase after a client or would you rather attract a client? Which would you prefer? Yeah, it's a whole lot nicer when my phone rings and says, hey, can you come list my house? Versus the ones I have to like chase after and interview against and plead my case and beg or ask nicely. So as it relates to solving, it talks about basically solving, serving, and giving value. The way that we kind of think about this, and this really almost sets the whole pace for the rest of the book, is when you're most likely solving for is for one of two potential things. Anybody want to guess what the two things that everybody basically makes a decision about real estate for one of two different reasons? General classification. Anybody want to guess what those two are?
Want or need?
Good. Yeah. Pain. Pleasure. Other one would be pain. Yeah. So problems or desires. So think about your last couple real estate deals, and somebody give me some examples of where they saw pain or pleasure being the reason why they bought or sold. All right. Divorce, that pain or pleasure? Could be both. All right. What else? Think about real life real estate transaction. Think about your most recent closing. Who had a closing this week?
Needing to get rid of stairs.
Okay, so pain or pleasure?
Pain.
Yeah. All right.
Senior living.
Senior living.
Cedarfield destination.
Cedarfield, yeah.
Pleasure.
Getting grandkids closer to the grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasure.
Yeah, good. What other closings did you have?
First house.
What's that?
First house.
Okay, so pleasure. Yep. So always, typically, actually maybe we could say always, there's a move for either, pain, some sort of problem they're trying to fix, or pleasure / a desire that they're having. And so if we're in the business of solving, we're going to be solving for one of those things. We're either going to be helping them experience their desire and their pleasure, or we're going to be helping them solve a problem or a pain point that they have. So the book talks about this simply as then our business or our job is just to listen for someone's pain or pleasure. And so the way that we listen for somebody's pain and pleasure is by asking them good questions. When you're asking them good questions, it also uses a good reference or analogy of time of possession. So anybody playing sports might know that, but you want to give them more time of possession than yourselves. You want them to talk more and you listen more. So again, if we're talking about this premise of we want to attract clients, I'm typically not attracted to somebody who just talks at me, but I'm fairly attracted to somebody who actually listens to me, hears me, and allows me the space and the opportunity to talk. So the simple framework for being a good question asker is the acronym FORD. How many of you guys know what FORD stands for? Okay. Anybody know what FORD stands for? Good. I was waiting for that one. Yeah.
Family, occupation, I don't know.
Recreation,
Recreation, and I don't know.
dreams.
Dreams.
So it puts us all under the framework of FORD. So family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And so for us to help find out if somebody is experiencing pain or pleasure, the way that we do that is by asking really good questions. And we ask questions about their family, their occupation, recreation, what they do for fun, and their dreams. And so let's come up together as a group, some good questions to ask about family that might give us a sense of pain or pleasure. What's a question we could ask about just anybody we ran into, or somebody in your database or a good friend? What's a good question you could ask about their family that might give us clues on pain or pleasure?
What schools they go to?
Okay, sure, yeah. Are they in school too? Are your kids in school yet? What schools are they at? What's another family question you could ask?
With some of my buddies, I've been asking them how their mom and dad are doing,
Yeah.
relating kind of like personal situations to it.
Yeah. Are they moving into Cedarfield this week? Yeah.
Is your family local?
Yeah. Is your family local?
Do you have kids or plan to have kids?
Do you have kids or plan to have kids? So far, are any of these questions like scary or intimidating or like politically incorrect to ask anybody? No, it's just asking questions. All right, let's keep going then. What other questions could you ask about family, just in general, or could actually be useful from a real estate perspective?
How far do you want to be away from your family?
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or what's
So.
your minimum?
Yeah, do you have family nearby? Are they far away? Is something there? Matt, it looks like your brain's about to hurt. You got something on your mind? Okay, good. The couple examples I put are how are the kids doing? I was in school pickup line yesterday just asking, hey, your kids in any spring sports right now? What kind of activities do you do with your family? Starting to ask, hey, do you guys have any plans for the summer? If you ask them, hey, do you have any plans for the summer? Their response could be, oh yeah, we have a river house we go to all the time, or our parents have a river house that we go to all the time. And then you could follow up and say, oh, that's great. Like, do you guys have your own river house, or have you ever thought about having a river house? So you can kind of see where these questions and then their answers can kind of spring to more questions, right? Are you looking to move to a bigger home to accommodate your growing family? If you find out that they're pregnant with their third, or whatnot. So, all right, what about occupation? What's some questions you could ask about their occupation?
How far are you from your work now?
Yeah, okay, good. How far away is your office, or how far away are you from work? Do you work remotely?
Has a big promotion come through lately?
Yeah, there you go. Big
Might not be
promotion.
The best advice, Tommy, but with some of the people I'm going through, I'm verifying that they're still doing the same thing and they're still in the same position that they were in, kind of like the last time we caught up.
Yeah.
For some of those calls that maybe spread
Yeah.
out a little further in between.
Yeah, good. What else? I mean, again, are these questions that are intimidating questions, or you're stepping on any type of eggshells over? I mean, you can ask these questions to anybody, right? the only thing that you might, the way that I'm maybe sensitive about like if somebody works or doesn't work is, what kind of keeps you busy during the day, or, you kind of softly walk into that in case it's somebody who maybe stays at home or doesn't work outside the house. Other questions that you could ask about occupation?
What's your favorite part of your job?
There you go. What's your favorite part of your job?
Like to ask people what good they're doing at work. What's something good you're doing today?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a B&I meeting this morning. Huge visitor day for us. We had like 50 or 60 people there. And I met a guy in construction. All he said was construction. And I was like, oh, is that commercial construction? He said, yeah, commercial construction. I was like, oh, good. Like, you guys working on any big projects lately? Or what's the most recent big project that you finished up? I know nothing about commercial construction. So, he told me about a gymnasium and doing some work at King's Dominion. But so kind of like similar to that, you could say, hey, what's the biggest project that you just finished up or is kind of on the works? They may say, oh, we've got a project where we're opening up a new office in New York and a bunch of people are moving there, or whatever it is. So you can kind of start to see there's a little bit of some ties into figuring out if there's some pain or pleasure going on in their life and how you might be able to help solve that problem of pain or pleasure being a real estate professional. What about recreation? Yeah, when you like to do for fun. Good.
The outdoor people.
Mm-hmm. What else?
Vacation, are you taking a vacation this summer?
Going on many vacations, yep.
What'd you guys do for spring break?
What'd you do for spring break? Mm-hmm. Do you have any hobbies?
What do you want to live close to?
Yeah, what do you want to live close to? What kind of vacations do you enjoy? It's a good recreation question. So, the unlimited amount of questions you could have on all these, but just want to kind of get those wheels turning. All right, dreams. This might be the hardest one. You meet somebody at open house and you just ask, hey, what's your long-term goal? But what are some questions for dreams?
What did you dream about last night?
There you go. That very literal question. Dreams.
Where do you see yourself living in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Other question about dreams?
What all do you need in a house?
What all do you need in a house? I feel like some folks have kind of poked around a little bit, but when do you plan on retiring? Or what does retirement look like for you? That would be a good one, right? Because retirement might look like sitting on a beach far away from Richmond, or it could be downsizing to the city. And if that's their retirement dream, and then your next question is like, oh, when do you plan on retiring? And they say, actually, this April. So some questions about dreams. So super easy, and you can use this with anybody. This is just good relationship building, right? It's not even real estate. It's just being a good, decent person, asking other people about their family, their occupation, recreation, and dreams. And then as a real estate professional, in the back of our mind, we're looking for those clues that they're mentioning that would relate back to that pain and pleasure, and as it relates to real estate. So the book also suggests 5 magic questions. And I've got printouts. I'm going to start handing some stuff out to you. The 5 magic questions are: what are your long-term plans for your house? If you could live anywhere, where would that be? This is a comical one today, maybe. With the low interest rates right now, are you living in the home you want to be in, or have you thought about making the move sooner rather than later? And then, is real estate part of your wealth plan? That'd be a good question. And then 5th one is more like an optional one, but what are your dreams for your kids? Certainly kids will be a huge factor in where they end up living, right? Like if they want to be near grandkids and their kid's dream is to, live in West Virginia, now all of a sudden it's like, all right, this person's going to be moving eventually. Yeah, Mike.
Could you hit those 5
And I'll give you the printout. What are your long-term plans for your house? If you could live anywhere, where would that be? And then you could just talk about basically what the state of the economy may be. Are you living in the home that you want to be in? Or have you thought about making the move sooner rather than later? And then number 4 is real estate part of your wealth plan? And then the 5th is one of the dreams for your kids. All right, so now I'll hand these out. All right, so the 5 magic questions of this first side, the back side now. So now that you have the right mindset of people want to work with a player, they don't want to work with a victim. We're problem solvers and we're looking for problems of pain or pleasure. We've got some good tools in our tool belt to help diagnose and figure out where those places are of pain or pleasure. Now we're going to kind of flush that all out into a bit of a system. And so the system that Ninja Selling uses is called Ninja 9. So it's basically 5 daily activities and then 4 weekly ones. And that's on the back side of the worksheet that you're getting now. So the Ninja 9, this is something you could just pin it up on your desk, and that'll be that. So the Ninja 9 starts with gratitudes and affirmations. And so any single book that I've ever read kind of always talks about the early morning and protecting your morning time and basically being selfless with your morning time so you can be selfish with your morning time so you can be selfless with your afternoon, and it's really stacking your day. So, but then also tons of books always talk about starting your morning off in that positive player-like mindset, doing whatever it takes to get you there. And so Ninja 9 recommends gratitudes and affirmations, giving thanks for what you have, giving thanks for the people in your life, and maybe the clients that you have, and then also could be part of affirmations and visualizations of using present tense. I am a multi-million-dollar producer. Not I would like to be. It's present tense. It's character-driven. All that stuff. So starting every single day, gratitude, affirmations, focus on a goal as if you've already achieved it. Second part of Ninja 9 is to show up and then stay on my agenda. It talks about the idea of showing up early in the office and not looking at email first, but staying on whatever your agenda is. And so whenever task you've created, showing up first and foremost, and then knocking those things out. So more could probably be said about that, but I think you guys probably would understand the gist of that part. Again, daily activity. At least for me personally, the way that I live this out is almost never ever do a home inspection in the morning. I'm like a 1 o'clock or a 3 o'clock home inspection because I need to protect that morning time to get kind of my database stuff done, prospecting stuff done, administrative stuff done, and a home inspection in the morning just totally tanks the rest of my day. So, and then I'm a 5 a.m. person, wake up, work out, unload the dishwasher, get the kids ready for school, and then get into the office after kids go. So another daily activity, write 2 personal notes. Nice thing about the personal notes that they talk about in the book is that, in essence, that helps you focus on other people. And there's some studies there where when you focus on other people and think about ways to encourage them and appreciate them and give value to them, that it brings you up. So write 2 personal notes. Focus on my hot list. So I'll give out this. Well, I'll wait for this one. Hot list for Ninja Selling is 4 criteria. Their 4 criteria are somebody who wants to buy or sell. They know that they want to buy or sell. They want to buy or sell with you. Pretty important. And then they want to buy or sell within like the next 90 days. So that's a hot list. So on a daily basis, who are the people they want to buy or sell. They know that they want to buy or sell. They know that they want to buy or sell with you, and it's within the last 90 days. You should be thinking about these folks daily and being in some sort of flow with them daily. Now, a warm list is, in essence, maybe one of those criteria is missing, but mostly it's probably that they don't know that they want to buy or sell just yet. So that's a lot of that identifying pain or pleasure. Like, you already see the writing on the wall of these folks are gonna move. You know, she's pregnant with her first child and her mom lives in Chesterfield or wherever it is, and like she's gonna want to move near where her mom is, you know, when that baby arrives. You know that they're gonna want to buy or sell, they just don't know it yet. That's gonna be a warm list person. Also could be somebody that they want to buy or sell, but it may not be you yet. So then they're going to be on your warm list so that you can help make them want you. So that's a warm list person. So here's a worksheet on some questions that you can ask yourself to help figure out if they're on the warm list or not. So the first half is some questions that says, these people want to buy or sell. So again, forward questions, but you could ask, have had an increase in family size in the past year? And basically this worksheet gives you some instructions, but this would be a good little exercise for you to literally writing down some names down on this piece of paper, or putting some of these numbers next to names in your database already, and kind of counting up how many of these questions pop up for them. But they have teenage children, have children who've left the home recently, are living below or above their means, have lived in their same house 7 years or more, have had their employer company expand in the past year, have had a downsize in the past year, have a commute of 1 hour or more, so forth and so on. So this is a good little worksheet from the Ninja Selling coaching and the book and all that stuff, but something you might want to sit down with your database and look at some names, put some of these numbers next to some names, fill in some names, and walk through, because this would be a great little way of forming your warm list. All right, so that's warm list, and that is one of your daily activities. Now, your weekly activities on the Ninja 9, if you're going back at the Ninja 9, weekly, make my customer service calls. This is what I shared yesterday at the sales meeting, and so you should be making, and I have on the back side of that sheet that I just gave you, a good reason to make some service calls, sellers every single week, under contract buyers every single week, active buyers every single week, recently closed customers, referral sources, anniversaries. You know, some of those things you're going to kind of swap in based off your people, off your clients, off your database. But you're making those weekly customer service calls. I talked about that yesterday. All right, the next part of the weekly activity is to schedule a real estate review. What do you guys think a real estate review is?
Updating somebody on the value of their home, maybe?
Yeah, so basically a CMA, but they would say not to call it a CMA, they would call it like an annual review. And so anybody sell 52 homes or more last year? Getting up there. So you might not be able to do this once a week if you've only been in real estate 1 year, but if you've been in real estate multiple years, now you could start to schedule this, you know, once a week. And I was just thinking about that, actually, quite literally, my phone just rang from my financial advisor, because guess what time of year it is? Time, well, that too, but time for my annual review with my financial advisor. Every single year, it's the only time I ever see him or talk to him, really, is once a year, wants to do an annual review, but that's to review my assets that I have, invested. We helped people buy possibly their largest investment that they have, probably a larger value than what some folks have, in the market. But are we doing an annual sit-down review just to give them a sense of how much their asset is worth? And then the question would be like, why wouldn't we? Don't you think people might want to know what their house is worth? So you would, on a weekly basis, try to schedule that and then meet with them and talk about it. So, all right, here's the fun one. Number 8, have 50 live interviews. So the ninja selling mindset is a lot different than just the selling and the prospecting and the lead gen, because it starts with that mindset of we want to, attract folks to us, not chase after the cat. And so 50 live interviews is a little bit of a mindset shift of we should be having 50 conversations on the phone or in person with other people. And it uses the word, it's not a prospecting call, it's not a cold call, it's not door knocking. That it uses the word interview on purpose because for me, the thing that kind of clicked for it was more like a journalist. Like if you were a journalist and you needed to meet with 50 people because that was your job and you needed to have 50 interviews with folks, when you go to meet with them, it'd be asking all those questions that we talked about, not to try to sell them on anything, but just to get to know them, just to kind of hear their story and to kind of write down some things of what they're telling you. And so as it relates to ninja selling is we should be having 50 of those conversations per week. It's not a text message, it's not an email, it's a phone call or an in-person conversation. The book gets a lot of pushback on, holy crap, 50. Like that's a whole lot of talking, and I don't even know how I would schedule that in a week. But I mean, in essence, there's 50 interactions right here and now if you so choose to see them as an interview type of interaction. And there's also kind of science behind 50 that if you did 50, that equates to basically one transaction. So it's a numbers game. If you're talking to 50 people, that should result in one transaction. So that journalist mentality, though, of like, I'm just going to be talking to people just to get to hear their story and for them to tell me some things, like, wow, that's a paradigm shift. If I'm calling my past clients and that's my mentality, is I'm just calling them just to ask them questions about their family, their occupation, their recreation, their dreams, really takes the pressure off that phone call for sure. Like that's more of a fun and delight of a phone call versus, hey, do you know anybody who wants to buy or sell a house? So 50 live interviews, that's a weekly goal. It's people that you're interacting with and you're rubbing shoulders with on a day-to-day basis. Some of it might be you picking up the phone and having to actively or proactively reach out to folks, but it's 50 live interviews. All right, update my database is the 9th of the Ninja 9, and so Ninja 9 recommends that you have a minimum of 200 names. And of that database, every person on your database knows who you are. So that's one of the criteria, is they actually have to know who you are. And that you're committed to being in what they would say is auto flow 3 times a month. So some sort of rhythm of communication or being in front of them 3 times a month. And then a live flow 2 to 4 times a year. So as you think about your database, this is people that you're willing to and are committed to being in that auto flow 3 times a month and then live flow 2 to 4 times a year. I don't have it printed out for you because it's super long, but I can email it out. There's 150 ways I've got to build your database. So this is basically just 150 questions kind of poking your brain at who could you add into your database, like who do you buy your clothes from, who's your tailor, who did you get your tattoo from, who built your house, who mows your lawn, who do you know in politics, who do you buy your hardware from. Just 150 questions to stimulate your brain to think through, okay, who do I need to have on here to help build your database. Number here that I thought was fascinating is your database depreciates 15% per year. So if your database is going down 15% every single year, what is it that you need to do? Add to your database at least 15% per year. And so sometimes it'll depreciate because people pass away. Sometimes it depreciates because they themselves get a real estate license. And then sometimes it depreciates because they meet another realtor that they end up working with and liking better. So because it's going down every single year, we have to be constantly and persistently adding to it to increase the size to make up for that. So that's the gist of the Ninja 9. The book itself is kind of all over the place, so it was actually kind of hard for me to try to form it into like an actual system or process. But I have just a few other notes here, and then glad to answer any questions or hear some comments. But the morning routine, it suggested to start with gratitude, positive reading something positive. And then writing 2 personal notes. So that's a good morning routine. One of the big things it talks about is the 8 and 8 strategy. So this involves sending one piece of valuable content each week for 8 weeks, but you make a phone call. So it's like post mail or email for, I guess that would be the first 6 times. And then on the 7th time, you make a phone call. And on the 8th time, you try to meet them. So that's the 8 and 8. You do that over the course of 8 weeks. 1 touch each week, 7th one being a phone call, 8th one being a face-to-face meeting. I have a worksheet kind of on that. It's more just a tracker. And also have that 15 post-closing calls. The 8 and 8, you can use that, he said, 5 different ways. Obviously, or maybe easily, 8 and 8 is great for a brand new relationship. So if you meet somebody at an open house, if you get connected with somebody, certainly a new relationship is who you could use the 8 and 8 for. You could also use it just as a rebranding. If you are new to the real estate business, that would be a good one. Like for me, I used to always be known as like the Young Life guy. Then I was getting into real estate, so really needed to rebrand myself as, okay, now when you think about real estate, you think about me. Rebranding is a good one that you could use 8 and 8 for. You can also use it just to rejuvenate a stale database. It had a good, and you can Google some videos and some scripts on this stuff, but it had a really good video of basically, hey, you may not remember me, I helped you buy your house a year ago. Or you may not remember me, I helped you buy your house 2 years ago. I made it a commitment to myself to make sure that I stay in good communication with my past clients, and then you kind of set the pace for kind of what you're going to be communicating from there on out. But you could use 8 and 8 to rejuvenate a stale database. If you do it kind of to the T, that takes the pressure off that first kind of awkward, uncomfortable phone call of like, hey, I know you haven't heard from me in a couple years or a couple months or whatever it may be, but you've sent them 6 other things already. And so then it's like, hey, you may have noticed, sent you some things, yada, yada, yada. So good way, you could use 8 and 8 to rejuvenate a stale database. You could also use it just on an annual refresher. So if it's been a year since you've been in communication with somebody, you just stick them in some sort of program. And the little tracker there, you could predefine what your touches are, like what your 8 things are. So you might create an email that, I don't know, has the Flying Squirrels spring schedule on it, and then you might have a postcard that references something else going on in the summer, and whenever it is, just whenever you put somebody new into the system, that's the order of things that they get, whatever it may be, and then you track it out. So you would use it for an annual refresher, and then geographical farming is the other way that it's recommended. So that's the 8 and 8. other little nuggets is you could use social media as a database to look for pain and pleasure, but then respond kind of offline. So you might see some exciting event going on in their life or a painful event, and you would just use that for your own use. But then think about helpful and sensitive way of responding kind of offline. Yeah, I've got lots of pagers on this 150 ways to build your database I can share. If you start Googling ninja selling, I mean, it's a whole course that people pay money to go to and teach, but it's in essence all this material. Thought this was really good, but too much to print out as well. A bunch of papers on like a Monday morning agenda. And so this would be really for those who want to self-evaluate and really kind of dig into their business and think through, okay, how do I really ramp this thing up? Where am I missing stuff? But this would be something that you would walk through yourself, or maybe with some accountability or as a team. But last week, did I run my business like a business? You'd answer how and how not. How can I improve this week? My ahas for this week. Who did I have a real estate review with last week? Who is scheduled for one this week? How are my lunches last week? Who is scheduled for this week? Did I make my 50 phone calls or 50 forward contacts? Who am I planning to write notes to this week? What's the reason why you're writing those notes? Who is a new potential seller from last week? Who's a new potential buyer from last week? Did I call every seller under contract? Did I call every buyer under contract? Which buyers and sellers not yet under contract need to be called this week? So lots of materials out there, lots of resources out there. Glad to share everything that I've got. I just really appreciate it on the ninja selling that the idea of it's not about just hitting them over and over again of, do you know somebody who wants to buy or sell a house? It's more that relational way of trying to attract business to you. So any questions or notes or things that stand out or clarification needed? What you think?
What's your favorite thing from this? I think there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different things, but what's your main takeaway, or you do?
I mean, I like the 50 interviews. I like the mindset of that being like an interview. Like from a journalist standpoint.
You imagine yourself as a journalist.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was probably the most convicting about it is that time of possession. Like a good time of possession is like 70-30. Like they should be talking for 70-30. And I just think about all the meetings or buyer consults I've had at like Local Cup or whatever it is. I don't think it's I don't think that's the 70-30 that is being. I think it's the opposite. So rather than sitting back and like listening, I remember there was a really nice listing that I should have had in Garrison Manor, and I got some feedback from them that their response was basically I wasn't listening to their needs, and the reality was they had to sell their house first before they could buy. Like there's no way in the world they could do it, and so I was focused more on the plan to get their house listed because that had to be done. And they were only focused on the house that they want to buy, which was kind of like a non-issue because they couldn't buy it unless the house was sold. And I was like, shoot, I should have like just listened to that more and like let them kind of more run the conversation versus me kind of putting out my agenda of, well, obviously we have to get the house listed first. So definitely convicting of like the time of possession and listening more than talking. So what else?
It's more of just a comment, but it's not necessarily what you're getting to know from them about what their needs are, but it can also give you an idea of, the area that they live in, what people love. about
Mm-hmm.
where they live and,
Yeah.
you know, just more knowledge of,
Mm-hmm.
of the area.
Yeah, I couldn't find it back in the book, but there was a part that basically said you use forward questions for several reasons. One's to build rapport, one's to like listen for that pain and pleasure, and one of them is for negotiations. And they were saying, you know, for negotiations, you're actually negotiating, I think, 5 different things. I think it rattled off, and so typically you're negotiating price, but then it listed off these other things of negotiating. But the example or the story it used then is when you're stuck on like an inspection repair, but you've done a good job of asking all those forward questions, and you can then remind them of like, hey, remember, you know, you had said the backyard was super important to you because you grew up with a house where you guys always threw the ball in the backyard. This was the only house that had that such a big backyard for you guys to throw ball. Like, is the $1,500 inspection repair really worth, you know, giving up that backyard that you've been looking for? So if you had asked all those questions, you know, you can also use it just in your negotiations because, you know, part of the job is we are negotiating with our own clients sometimes, not in an adversarial way, but, you know, in a way of reaching common ground. So, yeah. I forgot that on the bottom of this customer service calls, there's a 5-step calling process. That's a good one. So, salutation, is this an okay time? Look for some common ground. Purpose of my call, end on common ground, and it should just be like 3 to 5 minutes max. All right. Yeah.
Is the Monday morning checklist, is that something you have? Or
I have this copy, and we can run some copies. It's multiple pages, and you know, all I did was Google it somewhere because I think this was more from like a paid-for 3-day seminar you had to go to, but you can find their handouts for free online. So this was Ninja Installation, I think, Ninja Installation class. Anything else? Okay, we'll make a copy. All right, so think about full fee agent, and hopefully that's a more systematic read than this was, because this was kind of hard to try to pile in into more like a class topic, but that's the next one on my docket, and I'm glad to answer anything you have after class, and lunch should be here or should be here soon. So, cool, 11 a.m. next time.